Hello, Mr. Hardy here, and in this video I would like to teach you about Act 2, Scene 4 of Macbeth. As per usual, you need to be familiar with this scene before we start. You could have either read it, listened to it, watched it, or studied it, and you're using this video to help you revise. Again, as per usual, I'll start by summarising the plot. We'll look at the key characters, themes, context, quotes, and techniques, and I'll leave you with a couple of tasks you can complete at the end of the video to practice the knowledge you've learnt. So, what happens in Act 2, Scene 4 of Macbeth? Well, Ross, who is a Thane of Scotland, and an old man discuss the strange events of the night. Now, these strange events include perpetual darkness. We know that in night time it should be dark, but in Scotland in the daytime there seems to be darkness as well. We're not entirely sure if it's literal or metaphorical, but either way it's not a good sign. Also, predators are being killed by prey. So in this scene we learn that a falcon, that is naturally a predator, has been killed by a mousing owl, which is normally in the food chain its prey. Furthermore, herbivores, such as horses, King Duncan's horses, have become cannibalistic carnivores. They've started to eat each other. And all of this is evidence that the natural order has been subverted. So God has created the divine right of kings and has put a king in charge, King Duncan. And God has created the great chain of beings where God is at the top, and then angels, and then kings, and then men, and then animals, and plants, etc. If these two laws are followed, we will have what we call natural order. Everything in the universe works properly. But because Macbeth has killed King Duncan, he's broken the divine right of kings, he's broken the great chain of being, the natural order has been subverted, and instead of order, Scotland suffers from chaos. Anyway, a little later, Macduff arrives, and he announces that Malcolm and Donalbain, who are King Duncan's sons, have fled. Malcolm's fled to England and Donalbain to Ireland. And Macduff says this casts suspicion on them. Maybe they murdered their father in order to take the throne. However, the way Macduff says this, he's not convinced by this. Instead, it suggests that Macduff is suspicious that Macbeth played foully to become crowned King of Scotland. Macduff announces that Macbeth will be crowned the king in Scone, which is a place in Scotland. So we have three characters in this scene. The first one is Ross. We know that he's a Thane of Scotland, and he expresses concern over the state of Scotland. He's worried about this darkness, about the breaking of the natural order. Now, the old man, we don't know who he is really. Ross refers to him as father, but that doesn't necessarily mean the old man is Ross's father. Ross could be saying that out of polite respect to someone older than him. So there's an old man, we're not sure who he is, and he also echoes Ross's concerns. He is worried about this perpetual darkness, the fact that prey killed predators, the fact that herbivores have become carnivores, the fact that chaos is now reigning in Scotland. And Macduff, when he arrives, he is suspicious. Initially, it sounds like he's suspicious of Malcolm and Donalbain, but really he's suspicious of Macbeth. And he comes across as a bit rebellious. Macbeth is going to be crowned king in Scone. Really, Macduff as a Thane should go to Scone and, bow the knee and celebrate the coronation. But he's being rebellious. He says he's going to go back to his wife and children in Fife instead. So he's disobeying an order from the king to attend the coronation. This is the first sign that Macduff and Macbeth are going to be enemies in the play. So we have some key themes. We have the theme of the supernatural, things like perpetual darkness. Now, it depends on the person interpreting as to which supernatural power is at work. Some people might think it is the three witches, the weird sisters at work, casting the night in darkness, because after all, we've learnt in a previous video that in the darkness is when supernatural things and dangerous things and evil things happen in Shakespearean plays. I would personally argue the perpetual night is probably caused by God. God is upset that the divine right of kings, the great chain of being, is broken, and therefore he has subverted the natural order and has punished Scotland with perpetual darkness. We have this theme of order versus chaos, and when you talk about this, it probably makes sense to talk about the natural order. So this idea that God has created the universe with a structure, and as long as we follow the structure, everything is okay. But natural order has been subverted by Macbeth killing King Duncan, and instead of natural order, we get natural chaos. Herbivores become carnivores, prey become predator. And we have a theme of suspicion. This is really introduced by Macduff. First of all, he suspects Malcolm and Donalbain of murdering their father to go up the ladder to become king. But ultimately, I think Macduff is suspicious of Macbeth because Macbeth has now been crowned King of Scotland, and therefore he refuses to attend Macbeth's coronation. Contextually speaking, I've mentioned the top 3 points many times. I'm just going to go over it one more time for perfect clarity. The divine right of kings is the idea that God has decided who is going to be his representative on earth, who is going to be in charge of the rest of the humans, and God has that choice. The great chain of being is the idea that God has ordered, he's ranked all of the creations in the universe. God is at the top, he's the most powerful, then there's angels, then there's kings and queens, then there's humans, and there'll be different ranks of human based on your, profession. There'll be animals. Animals are ranked based on, predators at the top, prey at the bottom, and then, plants are ranked. Everything has an order, a great chain that links them together. And as long as you follow the divine right of kings, you respect God's king, and you don't break the great chain of being, you will have natural order. Everything in the universe will work perfectly. Predators will kill the prey, herbivores will eat plants, carnivores will eat meat, people will get along, there'll be no problems. But because Macbeth has killed King Duncan, he's broken the divine right of kings, he has broken the great chain of being, and this natural order has been replaced by natural chaos, and Scotland is suffering as a result. We also have this idea of darkness. We know from a previous video that in Shakespearean plays, darkness is a time of supernatural, of evil. So having Scotland in perpetual darkness, forever darkness, shows just how bad Macbeth's leadership and tyranny is. He's a terrible leader and Scotland is suffering. Shakespeare uses the play to teach about kingship. Kingship is the idea of what makes a good king and what makes a bad king. And ideas of what makes good and bad kings are sort of dotted throughout the play. And remember, Shakespeare does this to curry favour from his friend and patron, King James I. It's also partly to educate the audience about the importance of having a good king on the throne. Okay, key quotes. Here's some evidence from the text that the natural order has been subverted. And yet dark night strangles. This is personification. Night can't strangle, humans can strangle. So giving the human quality of strangling to the night is a personification. And it just paints a really evil image. Imagine sleeping at night and the darkness around you strangles you to death. That's what it's like living in Scotland under the rule of Macbeth. It's horrible. Quote 2, darkness doth the face of the earth entomb. The verb entomb is interesting. If you entomb someone, you put someone dead inside a tomb. A good example would be Jesus. When Jesus was crucified, they put him in a tomb, which is like a cave, and then they rolled a stone in front of him to keep him in that cave. Imagine that Scotland is Jesus and it has been placed inside a tomb. Scotland is dead. A big stone's been rolled in front of it, and Scotland is trapped in darkness and death. That's what it's like when Macbeth is on the throne. Truly a horrible time to be Scottish when Macbeth was on the throne. A falcon was killed by a mousing owl. Here I've stitched together 3 small quotes into a larger quote, and this animal imagery proves that the natural order has been subverted because a falcon is a predator, it should do the killing, and the mousing owl is prey, it should be killed. But in this case it's the opposite way around. The mousing owl has killed the falcon, therefore natural order has been subverted. More evidence of this comes in the herbivore horses becoming carnivores. Duncan's horses, they eat each other. Again, I've taken 2 shorter quotes and stitched them together to form 1 longer quote. Again, this is using animal imagery. This is important because in the Jacobean era, not every member of the audience was educated. but every member of the audience would have known what a horse is, what a falcon is, what an owl is, so they would be able to relate to these ideas and piece together in their head that the natural order has been subverted. When Macduff enters, he says some quite key quotes. He says, "Malcolm and Donalbain are stolen away and fled, which puts the suspicion of the deed upon them." And here again I have stitched together two shorter quotes for my benefit. Ultimately, Macduff doesn't think Malcolm and Donalbain are guilty of King Duncan's murder. He suspects Macbeth. He announces that the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth. In other words, Macbeth will be crowned the new King of Scotland. And when asked if he's going to go to the coronation in Scone, he says, "No, cousin, I'll to Fife." This is the first sign of sort of rebelliousness against the rule of Macbeth. So, my advice to you would be to make notes from this video on a physical copy of Macbeth. I would then answer the following question. What are the consequences of Macbeth's regicidal act in Act 2, Scene 4 of Macbeth? So we know Macbeth's regicidal act was when he killed King Duncan, and now I want you to look at the consequences that we can find in Act 2, Scene 4. If I was you, I'd talk about the natural order being subverted. You've got evidence about the falcon and the mousing owl. You've got evidence about Duncan's horses. You've got evidence of the perpetual nighttime. When answering this question, I'd make sure I put in lots of contextual knowledge. So I would explain the divine right of kings, the great chain of being, the natural order, and I would talk about the consequences of Macbeth killing King Duncan over Scotland. Okay. Well, if you found this video useful for your GCSE English Literature revision, please give it a like. Please also subscribe to my Mr. Hardy YouTube channel to get the rest of the Macbeth videos. And please feel free to leave a comment if you think there's anything I missed or anything you'd like to share with me. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you on the next one.